Exosister was a deck that was met with interesting reactions when it was first revealed. Being an Exos deck that had effects that allowed you to make a single material Exos monster, some people immediately started crying about how it was Zodiac 2.0 and were worried that they would break the game just as hard as Dragon Mummy did. However, those reactions were premature, because then the people who actually read the cards instead of skimming over them joined the conversation, and told the rest of players the hard truth. Exosisters don't really do anything. You see, besides using their quick play spell that allows you to special summon an Exos monster, or making them the normal way with 2 materials, and if you do that, you miss out on their main effect. All you really do is put some nuns on the field and hope that your opponent interacts with the graveyard. If they don't, well, you won't be doing anything much at all. People started calling the deck too passive, and well, they aren't wrong. Any archetype that falls apart to summoning 2 monsters and entering the battle phase isn't gonna last long. Enter Magistus. Another spellcaster archetype released in a deck building pack. They weren't really considered for play too much, due to being a bit clunky and not having that much payoff. Well, until the Synchro Zora came out, that is. This Synchro monster locks your opponent out of activating extra deck monster effects of the same type as a Magistus extra deck monster that's an equip spell. So for example, if you equip Selene to something, you lock them out of link effects. Combine this with the fact that Magistus monsters are also all level 4 spellcasters, and you start to see where the synergy comes together. During your turn, you're setting up a fairly powerful lock with the Magistus monsters, helped by the Exosisters being ideal materials for the Magistus monsters, and then during your opponent's turn, you activate Exosister Magistus, which by summoning 2 Exosisters to your field from your deck, basically does everything you would have done during a pure Exosister turn anyway. It solves the problem of them being too passive, giving them some fun combos, while also staying true to what the deck was supposed to do in the first place. So here's the deck. I'll show off both sides one after the other for the sake of clarity, starting with Exosisters. Run 3 of all of their main monsters, except Irene, since her effect is just kind of worse than the others. You still want to run 1 though, just for the cards that read Sophia's effect, which mentions her. These cards are all fairly interchangeable, but you really want one of the ones that can summon itself or another Exosister, and then Sophia to get yourself a draw. For their spells, we run 3 Pax, 2 Arment, and 1 Carpe Diem. Pax is pretty much their best card. For a mere 800 life points, you can either search Magistus, setting up a potential 2 Exos summons on your opponent's turn, or it can get you another Exosister on the field, allowing you to combo further. It's good to keep in mind that the Exosister mentioning the monster you just searched can also be in the graveyard, so it's fine to use it as something like a synchro material before using this card. Arment isn't great going first, but it does allow you to force the summon of a particular extra deck Exosister, making the deck a bit less passive. I chose to run 2, but you could opt to run 3 and then not bother with Carpe Diem, since it's a fairly niche card anyway. Magistus, however, does most of what the archetype needs in just 1 card, letting you sit on 2 Exosisters and waiting for them to trigger their effects. Now for the Magistus side of the deck. Run 3 Crowley, 3 Zorora, 3 Ver and 2 Endymion. Crowley is an easy special summon who can re-equip extra deck monsters to the Synchro Zora, a graveyard effect that he shares with Ver. She's a good combo piece, either search and Tris Magistus if you don't have it, or Magistus Invocation or Thurgy if you do. Zorora is very important for the simple fact that he's a tuner, letting you make a Synchro version together with any other one of your main deck monsters. He can also extend your combo a lot by equipping an extra deck Magistus to himself, causing him to summon back a monster from your graveyard that would be the right level for a Synchro summon. Endymion is a bit less important, but he can help you make a Zorora that locks your opponent out from all 4 extra deck types, as well as sending a used up Tris Magistus to try and fix your hand. Now Tris Magistus is a very important card, either summoning anything you want from your hand, or sending itself to summon multiple Magistus monsters from it. Magistus Invocation can make a fairly strong interruption for a fairly small cost, or just lock your opponent out of fusion monster effects altogether, so feel free to run this at 3 and cut off 1 Thurgy if you want. Thurgy basically just helps you make the full Zorora lock, but with less restrictions. It just doesn't have quite the same payoff as the other cards. Finally, we run 3 Summoner Monks to allow you to summon anything from the deck at the cost of a spell, so you can easily dump a hard once per turn that you drew 2 of. By itself, it allows you to make a Synchro Zorua, but also you can summon Vert to combo further. It's also a dark type, so it's easy to make a Viliona with it and almost anything else. Finally, Double or Nothing is an optional brick that you need to run, either for easy 80Ks going second, or Hope Harbinger while going first. If you decide against this package, just replace it with an extra spell that I talked about. Now, this deck's extra deck was actually quite hard to fit everything into. You see, you basically have a choice of either having a few extra copies of the best monsters, being Zorua, Artemis, Michaelis and Capistel. Otherwise you can do what I did and run a Utopia package, consisting of Utopia, Utopia Double, Utopia Dragoner, and then a Hope Harbinger. This allows you to one-shot your opponent while going second, or just set up a Spell Negate and a 6000 attack Dragoner while going first. I think it adds some interesting combo routes for the deck, especially if you brick and can only really summon 2 monsters that won't be doing much else. Now for the Exosister side of the extra deck, it's pretty simple. Just run one of each of their Xyz monsters. You want the variety, since you want to be able to react to whatever your opponent is playing, and summon whichever one will shut their deck down the hardest. Gibrine is a targeted negate, a Sophiel is an Abyss Dweller with an Ignition Effect Compulse, Capistel locks graveyard summons and can search a monster, while Michaelis is a DD Crow that searches a spell or trap. Going first, you'll only ever really make Michaelis, since she can search a Vardis to set up plays during your opponent's turn. For the Magistus extra deck, you run one of each Artemis, Zorua, Varum, Awais, Viliona and Niniari. Artemis gives you a search and can even equip itself to Zorua if you manage your summons well, so it's very important. Zorua is your main win condition, locking your opponent out of whichever extra deck Magistus monsters are equipped to something on the field. Between this and the Exosisters making interacting with your graveyard difficult, you're really just trying to make it hard for your opponent to actually play their turn. Varum is mostly there to lock your opponents out of their synchros, but its protection can be nice too. Awais can either be a fusion lock, or against non-fusion decks, it can also be summoned properly to steal a monster. It's fairly versatile anyway, since it's a quick effect, and will end up in your monster zone if you do steal something, so Zorua will lock out fusion monster effects anyway. Viliona is great for getting Vert or Zorua from the main deck, but just remember that you need 2 different attributes to summon her. Finally, Niniari is the most optional of these, but it can be hard to get Viliona into the graveyard sometimes after using her effect, so you often need a different Xyz monster if you want to lock your opponent out of Xyz effects. Finally, there is a Zeus, because this is an Xyz deck and if I didn't run it, people would yell at me in the comments. Replace this by one of the 4 below if you really want to. Now, if you want to try and run hand traps at the cost of some options, you can try and fit in some Ash Blossoms and Infinite Impermanences at the cost of some of the less important cards. I'll probably put an alternate version of the deck list on my Patreon if you want to see an example of that. Anyway, that's the deck. Now let's see what kind of combos you can do with it. I'll be showing you some test hands to give you an idea of what the deck's capable of, and the different combo lines that you can choose between. But first, if you've been enjoying this video so far, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. For this first hand, we start with a Summoner Monk, discarding a Carpe Dievel since it won't be too useful. That gets us a Zorua from the deck. Crowley then discards a Crowley to summon itself from the hand, before you link the Monk into an Artemis. Zorua can then equip a Niniari from your extra deck, bringing back the Summoner Monk. You can then Synchro Summon a Zorua, which will trigger both itself to equip the dragon and an Artemis to equip itself. Crowley can now equip Niniari from the graveyard to Zorua, locking your opponent out of activating Synchro, Link and Xyz monster effects. Artemis can search a Vert for next turn, while Pax can search a Vardis. During your opponent's turn, you can then just use Vardis to summon 2 Exosisters from the deck, ready to become their Xyz versions when your opponent messes with the graveyards. In this hand, while we don't start with any Exosister monsters, we still have them fully set up for next turn thanks to Pax. It shows how their engine works pretty well, even if it was just a compact form. We start with Viliona, searching a Magistus, and then we discard a Crowley for a Crowley. Pax can now search a Vardis. Since you have a light and a dark, you can Exuse summon a Viliona, who summons Zora from the deck. He'll equip Artemis, summoning back Crowley, and then searching an Endymion. You can now use Magistus to summon an Endymion, and then synchro him to a Zora. He'll equip Varum, and Crowley will equip Artemis by banishing itself. To cover Exuse monsters as well, Endymion can also equip Ninyaru straight from the extra deck. Now all you have to do is set Vardis and Pax, setting up your Exosister plays while having a powerful lock from Zora. For this third hand, we have Elise and Sophia, who work quite well together. After playing a Magistus, summon Sophia, who then allows Elise to summon herself. Sophia draws a card, which here is Summoner Monk. Magistus can now summon Viliona, who searches Thurgy. We can then use it to equip Viliona as Artemis so that she can search a Crowley. He'll summon himself by discarding the monk, and together they can overlay into a Utopia double. That will search a double or nothing, and then summon a Dragna, who can get you a Hope Harbinger. The two Exosisters can now Exuse summon a Michaelis, who searches a Vardis, once again setting you up for your opponent's turn. Since you have an Armament though, you can preemptively turn one of them into an extra deck monster. I go for Jibreen since it's a monster negate, but you can also just go for whatever you think works best against your opponent. For this final hand, I'll show you a combo that can end with all 4 extra deck types being locked, while still having your Exosisters ready to go. Start with Sophia, and then use Pax to add and summon Elaine, since she's mentioned in Sophia's text. Sophia draws a Crowley, while Elaine actually comes in handy and shuffles back a Vardis for a Viliona. You can now use Magistus' second effect, sending itself to summon both Magistus monsters from your hand. That'll let Viliona search an invocation. Crowley and Elaine make an Exuse Viliona, who gets you a Zora. He equips himself as a Varum, allowing you to summon back Crowley. Link Crowley into Artemis and synchro summon the others into Zora, allowing him to equip both Artemis and Ninyaru to Zora. Crowley can also banish himself to equip the Varum. You can now use Invocation with Viliona and the equipped Varum as materials to make an AOS. Viliona can now just banish herself to re-equip the Varum before you set Vardis and end your turn. During your opponent's turn, it's as simple as activating a Vardis to get 2 Exosisters ready to go, and then you'll not only be able to steal something your opponent controls by equipping it with an AOS, but you'll also be locking them out of fusion monster effects by doing so. All in all, they not only won't be able to activate the effects of Link, Exuse, Synchro, and fusion monsters, but any interaction with the graveyard will allow you to get either another negate or something that prevents your opponent from summoning from their graveyard. So, what did you think? Do you still find Exosisters too passive? Or do you think mixing them with Magistus speeds the deck up enough? Let me know down in the comments, and while you're down there, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Special thanks to the first tier 2 patron, Jason Moat. If you want to check out the patron, the link's in the description. Thanks for watching!